The proof is in the pudding, and the pudding in this case is a football. Boom! Eat my goal! The goalie has got football pie all over his shirt.
Welcome to this episode of the Down the Pub podcast. As you can hear, I can't speak properly, so I'm going to keep the intro very brief. We're joined by El Presidente himself, Derek Martin. Welcome back to the show, Derek. Appreciate you doing this.
Pleasure to be here, as always. I'm hopefully I'm your last one of the year. I'll feel very special if that's the case.
Well, yeah, I suppose it probably will. Me and Gary are getting very lazy these days, so it probably will be the new year before we do the next one. So yeah. So this is a very special end of year episode with Derek Martin, and of course Gary is here too. I'm not going to say your last name.
Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, like
I have to still say that because I'm on every week.
I don't know.
I don't think so.
No, you've
got to be part of the. You're part of the fabric now, right?
Yeah, you're one of the crew guys. You know.
Yeah, that's true.
There's a lot's kind of happened since the end of the season. I don't think we got a chance to do like a wrap up, but it's probably a good idea to get Derek on. Just kind of go back over a little bit of the season, and obviously today was an announcement of the squad and stuff like that. So my first question for you. A couple of weeks ago, you were named the Business Executive of the Year, and we also won the top season seat member retention and the top single match set. Jesus Christ, they've done this on purpose to mess me up. So what do these awards actually mean anything to you, and is it a good reflection on the team we've built around you?
Sure. I think anytime you're recognized by your peers in whatever business you're in or whatever field you're in, it always feels good. I think this year was the first year we set up these business awards for the entire league. I don't know if you guys know, but we hosted all of the teams from the league in Halifax this summer, and we all had them out to one of our games. I think it was the NATO Day game. And they all got to see how we operated, and we had some meetings around that. And it was a great chance for all the different staff in the different clubs to meet one another. And, it's a competitive business. So as much as we compete on the field, it's fun to compete off the field in terms of, who's doing well. And I'll brag a little bit and say that, the Wanderers have kind of led every category on the off the field stuff for quite a while. So, the creation of these awards were designed to create some awards that, rewarded some of the clubs who have started maybe a little bit behind, but who have shown good increases year over year, which is great. At the end of the day, it's about us being stronger across the country as a business. I always say that we want to compete like hell on the field. And we want to beat the shit out of every team that we play. But off the field, we're all partners. And the only way this whole league grows is if, more people are going to games in Ottawa, more people are buying merchandise in Winnipeg, more events are happening in Victoria. Those are all positive things for the consumption of the sport of, soccer / football in Canada. So we love to help our fellow clubs. We try to get help from them in areas where they might be doing better than us in some things. And, hopefully events like we had this summer and awards like we just had a couple of weeks ago, help motivate and help kind of push all of us forward from a business side, which we sometimes forget, how new this all is as a business in this country. And we still have a lot of work to do. And but I think we're at the right stage too. That's not to be negative about, we're not there yet. It's just it takes time to build this stuff and to grow organically in each market and across the country. And I feel like we're, on the right track.
Oh, well, congratulations. Did you get like a little trophy?
I think I'm getting a trophy. I haven't gotten a trophy yet, so I'll look forward to getting something from Mark in the mail. Hopefully, with Christmas post office stuff, it might take a couple weeks to get here. It might be a little late. I don't know.
I can see us having like an open top bus thing downtown for you and
Yeah.
your trophy.
I'd much rather I did feel it was kind of weird, it's one of those things where when you're in team sports and you run a business and you've got a lot of teammates, it's tough to be uh selected and put out on top of everybody else. That's not really the way this stuff works. So it's like winning an MVP award if you're on a team and you feel bad because it's like, well, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for all the other guys that are doing all of their stuff. But in that sense, I thought it was a good reward for the club and, rewarded all of the great people we have that have put so much into, trying to build this up over the last 5 years.
So, like just on the back of that, then we obviously had York being taken over by this pretty big
Yeah.
investment group from down in Mexico. So, you know, um, as a ownership group, how happy are you the fact that we didn't end up with another Edmonton where we actually had somebody come in and seeing the league being viable and York being viable?
Listen, it's huge. It's huge. And I think we believed, as the other seven ownership groups in York, that's why we took the club over. We wanted to make sure they, operated this past year. I thought they did very well, considering all things considered. They were dealing with a lot there, obviously. And to then have an investor come in of the caliber of the group that came in and the connections they have globally in the game and the commitment they've made. Ricardo's moving to Toronto, his family, and all in terms of what they can do to turn it around there off the field and in the stands. I think it's a great testament to the potential this league has. And again, I think those of us who are really close to this, you guys, I would put in that category. You've been following it from the beginning. You've been supporting it. There's a bunch of us that have been like that. Sometimes we forget, I think, how interesting this project is to the rest of the world. Because soccer is a old sport that is well developed in, the countries where it is as popular as it is. And they look at this concept here in Canada and they're like, okay, your country is how big and your economy is how strong, and you're just creating a league now, and you've got all of this potential and all of this, opportunity to grow. That's a really interesting situation. And I know we sometimes get people shitting on it and to focusing on the negatives, but there's a lot of positives going on too. And nothing worth having is easy, and it's going to still take a lot of hard work, but we're on the right path.
Just on the back of that too, like we had Mo Farsi win an MLS Cup last
Yeah.
week. We had
Awesome as that.
Kimani Stewart Baynes being drafted fourth overall today, ex-Wanderer. So I mean, you must be very proud, like looking back where we are after like, what was it, 5 seasons now, and the fact that we're giving young Canadians this opportunity they probably wouldn't have had before.
100%. Like there's so much pride in what we've been able to do so far, and we're literally only scratching the surface. Like there is so much more to come in terms of, the potential of this league to become relevant across the country as, a real option for people and how they want to support their community and their clubs. The opportunities we have to continue to develop players. We are going to have players that played in the CPL on the World Cup Canada team. I know it. I know we will, and that's going to be a huge testament to the vision of the folks who started this, and all the people who have helped it in these first 5 tumultuous years of COVID and some unforeseen challenges in some certain markets, but we've kind of battled through, and we've got some good news coming soon on another club, and there'll be some expansion news in the next year. It's just there's a lot of good, exciting stuff going on.
Nice. People are probably going to have questions for you about the stadium and all that kind of stuff, but just in terms of CONCACAF itself, like, do you think that they need to kind of be a little bit more mindful of the Canadian weather when it comes to things like the Champions Cup, because we've seen Calgary and now the Whitecaps having to play a Starlight Stadium, which is crazy that we have two teams in Canada having to play away from home in such a prestigious cup.
Yeah, I listen. I don't think it's up. CONCACAF has a large geography to try to work within. So I think it's with Canada now being in this competition, it's just going to become part of the reality, and we're going to have to work harder to have our venues available at that time of the year. And it's again part of the reason why we've made the pitch we have to the city of Halifax, and some changes that need to be made to the surface and to the amenities to be able to host games in February and March. And even us, like, we're looking at our league and looking at expansion, and wondering how you fit all the games in without pushing the players to a point where they're playing too often and risking injuries. And that's going to require an extension of our season. Even now at 8 games, or at 8 teams, sorry, we're going to probably be extending the season by a couple of weeks. And then when you go to 10 teams and 12 teams, and this idea of being able to end it all at the end of October is probably going to go out the window. So it's just the reality of what we're going to have to figure out.
Wow. Games at Christmas.
Maybe not that long. But,
just before I pop off the Gary, I just had one more quick question. I just wanted to get your a quick word about Dino Rossi and what he's done with the League One system in Canada. Obviously, he's announced that he's moving on. I just wanted to know what your relationship was with him, and how he's kind of changed the landscape here in Canada.
Yeah, Dino is a great guy. One of the first people I met when I got involved in this project. I remember it really clearly. My first event I ever went to was the CSA meetings in Whistler, BC. And it was a year that there was a lot going on in the soccer world. And I ended up at a table for dinner with Dino and a few other people, and spent the whole night kind of trying to learn everything I could from Dino about what was going on in the landscape of soccer in Ontario. And he's really been the guy that's built League One up from nothing into what it is now, which is a league we're certainly looking to emulate in the Maritimes with what we want to do around League One. And I think you guys are seeing it right across the country with Alberta and BC. And I think there's a great movement happening behind a lot of his effort, and great to see him still involved. He's on the Canada Soccer Board, so he's not going away. He's still looking to influence the game in positive ways, but just in a different way than he has been so far.
Yeah, Derek, I wanted to kind of, as I like to do, go back to the beginning of, well, kind of this time last year, actually. And there's a line Patrice has said a couple of times in interviews I've done with him in written and on the podcast, where he talks about how he was actually approached by the club. And I think that's a good line, because it's kind of tells you a bit about his character, and thinking his hard work had deserved the respect to be sought out. But I also think it's interesting if you look at it from the club's perspective as well, because we know you did have a lot of applicants for the job. What was it that made you kind of move away from those applicants and actually seek Patrice out in the first place?
Yeah, we had some great applicants, and names I see popping up now for MLS jobs. So we certainly had great candidates. And again, what I said earlier, it goes back to, I think, within the soccer community, people really are excited about what the CPL represents and about what the opportunities are here. And some great people, both Canadian and international. And really, the guy that deserves the credit is Matt Fegan, because we got all of these great resumes. We kind of went through an initial process of weeding them down to some people that really matched. As I think I said publicly, I probably said to you guys, I had a pretty clear vision for what I wanted in terms of the style of play, and not to get into all the nitty gritty, but just from a very basic overview standpoint, that the type of person that I thought would be good. And Matt's the guy who said, there's a guy I'm surprised hasn't applied, that everybody I talked to says would fit exactly what we're saying we want out here. I think I'm going to reach out to him and just ask him why he hasn't applied, and that we're kind of surprised he hasn't applied, because everybody we keep talking to keeps saying this is the guy that really fits. And that's where it led to what you just mentioned, where Matt reached out to Patrice, and Patrice was a bit, well, I didn't think I was of the caliber yet, and wasn't thinking about being ready. And we said, no, like, if everything we hear is you are ready, let's have a chat, and why don't you go through this process. And we had made everybody prepare a presentation for us and present their vision for how they would build the club. And with our roster at the time, who would you keep, who would you look to move, what kind of player would you want to add. And Patrice just blew us away and me away in his presentation, with his personality, and with his vision for what he wanted to do. And he was so confident, and he was so, for somebody who didn't feel like he necessarily, deserved the chance, that didn't come out in the way he pitched his vision. He believed 1000% in the way he thought the game should be played, and in what could work, and what would work in the CPL, and what could work for Halifax. And as you guys have now seen many, many times, he's got a really unique ability to sell his vision, both to the people around him and his players, and then get them to actually do it and execute it. So it was a really fun process to go through. It was still a tough decision. There were some other great candidates, and it really did come down to, I still remember, we finished it all off, and Matt and I finished our conversation. I said, okay, give me the weekend to just think about it. And thought about it long and hard, and just, I think, called Matt on the Sunday and said, okay, I know what we want to do. Let's go for it with Patrice. And it was a bit of a risk at the time. He wasn't you guys would probably remember, we had fans looking for somebody with MLS experience or European experience. And Steven hadn't had club experience. He had been on a national team level, so they thought we really should hire somebody with worked for a club for a long time. And Patrice didn't have that. He was new, he was fresh, he had never worked in a professional environment before, but he had something, and I'm really glad that he agreed, and we got him on board. And now we're off to the races, and still have lots to do and lots to achieve, but I certainly feel like we're on the right path.
Yeah, that's the thing I've found when I met him as well, because you read up on him, you watch his old teams play, and the first thing you notice is just tactically it jumps off the screen, and you kind of really focus on that. But then you have a conversation with him, and he's an incredibly convincing person. He's charismatic, he speaks really well, he can hold an audience. And you then you add that to the mix as well, and you're not just kind of some tactical nerd behind a laptop who's figuring out these shapes and patterns. You can actually hold a group of men accountable as well, and lead them. Exactly. And it's an incredibly important characteristic to have. And he wasn't the only new person to join last year, obviously, as well. There's a lot of new players came on board, a lot of recruitment. And it felt to me like the focus of the recruitment was a lot different to how it had been before. The focus, I know the Wanderers joke was made, but the focus to me always seemed to be more NCAA players and that sort of profile of talent. How did your approach to recruitment change last year, and I guess this year as well, because same coaching staff?
Well, it's a great question. And I think, part of hiring the coach is hiring the recruiter. And I remember saying in the process, I've been involved in university sport for a long time. I was a university sport athlete. I've worked in university sport events. I saw a lot of similarities between the level we're at, and not necessarily in terms of talent, but in terms of the maturity level and the age of the players that are in the CPL. They're very similar to university athletes. They've been very successful. They've obviously been achieved some great things. But they're at that point in their life where they're transitioning from being at home with mom and dad to being out on their own, and they're really looking for someone, I think, that can be that leader for them who's a bit of a father figure, who they trust, who they can believe in, who has those skills to make them comfortable and bring the best out of them. And I think that's what Patrice, if he's the one thing he's best at is selling. And the selling comes in not just with you guys or with the community or with the media. It's his ability to sell a player on why they should come to Halifax and buy into his vision for the way he plays, what that style of play is going to mean, the good and the bad that's going to come with it, right? And why they want to buy into what we're trying to build here. And, he's the reason why we made that shift in recruitment, because he knows exactly what he wants. He knows exactly how to evaluate the talent. You can see it with Kimani. Like Kimani got drafted today, 4th overall in the MLS draft. Patrice knew that years ago. That's why he came and trained with us last summer, because Patrice knew that kid was going to make it, because he saw all the qualities that he's seen in Alistair Johnson and in Kamal Miller and in all the other great players that he's had under him. So I think what he has brought to us is a real vision for the type of player that we want to have, how they fit within a very specific system. And your reference, Gary, to the NCAA is a good one, where I think, Patrice, not to give away our secrets here as what we're trying to do, but the NCAA is this great, not breeding ground, but a great place to go find these really talented players that are playing in amazing facilities. They're getting a huge, you think about a university education, what a scholarship means to go to, Kimani, let's use that example, or Omar, who went to Notre Dame, Kimani, who just went to Maryland. These are $50,000 to $60,000 a year scholarships that, these kids are getting. They're obviously very talented. Yet there's this moment that those kids kind of fall off, and if they don't get drafted in the MLS, where do they go? And I think what we found in our first few years, the world is so big, the soccer world is so big. You can find talented players everywhere, all over the planet. But then how those players acclimatize to playing in cold weather, on artificial surfaces, in a league that is still new, referees are still finding their footing, it's maybe ref differently, it's maybe coached differently, it's maybe fans react to it differently. These all take time to get used to. And when a player has played, if they're coming from Europe and coming to play, like Dan Nimick, who's coming from playing in England, where everything's perfect and you're playing on perfect grass pitches and you're the biggest deal in the world because it's the one biggest sport that everybody knows and pays attention to then being in Western Michigan and getting used to playing in front of a couple thousand people and playing on turf and and playing in the snow. Well, when he comes to the Wanderers, he's ready for what Halifax in March is like, versus, you think back to our first year, you think about guys like Luis Pereira or, Goody, these guys that, they're coming here, they're like, what the hell am I walking into? And we're trying to have some fun with it, but they're seeing snow for the first time and they're like wondering what the hell they just signed up for. Not having to deal with that initial shock factor by using, or finding NCAA guys who are already used to North America and our climate is a huge advantage, I think. And I think we saw that last year with a much faster acclimatization to the style of play and what we were trying to do, that helped us out by the end of the year.
Yeah, I think the recruitment was fantastic last year. I mean, as important as Patrice coming on board was, the recruitment was, a coach is only as good as his players at the end of the day. I don't think you can have the world's best coach, but if the players aren't there, you won't go anywhere.
100%. Yeah.
So we kind of look back and it was a fantastic season in the end. But if we look to, I don't know, late May, early June, when we'd gone 8 games without a win. And there was obviously a lot of pressure and stress around the club again, because you are wondering, is this going to turn a corner at any point? And I was wondering, from your perspective in your role with your job, you're in a really awkward position because everyone knows if the results aren't there, you will decide to fire them. That's just the nature of sports as a business. And I was wondering, like, as a person and as a boss, how do you carry yourself in that sort of situation? Because you walk into a room to talk to your coaching staff who haven't won in 8 games, they are 100% part of their brain is thinking, is he thinking about kind of letting us go because the results aren't there? So how do you make people comfortable in that situation while also with your job head on, you're analyzing these results, analyzing the performances and thinking like, are we on an upwards trajectory or not?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's a couple things. One, you could really tell even in those first 6 or 8 games that there was a shift happening in the way that our team played. And the year before was extremely painful for everybody involved because when we were in games, the minute we gave up a goal, I think everybody in the stands, on the field, in the office felt the same way, which is the heads went down and we're down by 1, we're gonna lose. And I could tell in those first, 5, 6, 7, 8 games that even though we weren't getting the win, there was something happening with the club and with the guys that were competing out on the field that was positive. And they were fighting and they were standing up in the moment where maybe before we fell down and not putting their heads down, but holding their heads high. And they were getting a bit unlucky, in some cases. But you could see that there was something happening that was positive. And I remember it really clearly. Like Patrice got home from one of the road trips, and to your point, I think he was feeling a little bit like, oh shit, this hasn't really gone the way I expected. He's a confident guy. He came in with, guns a-blazing. We're gonna get started. We're gonna change this thing around right away. And he was starting to feel it a little bit. And I remember just looking at him and saying, listen, man, I can see it. I can see what you're doing. I can see what's coming. And don't worry. Just keep going. Keep going. Keep going. We don't need to change players. We don't need to panic right now and throw it all away. You've been working at this for, 3 months now. You got 17 new players. You're teaching 23 new players a whole new system. You're experimenting with Mo Omar as a center back who's never played there before. You're doing a bunch of stuff here that is going to take some time, but I think we can all see that there's something really good being born in the middle of it. And you got my support to keep going. And he did. And it wasn't soon thereafter that we got the first win. And then we were starting to roll. And I think the key was that you could really, I don't know how, I can't, I don't have a metric, I don't have a stat that we looked at and said, well, there's a, our possession stats are so good that we're definitely ready to go. It wasn't that. It was just a feeling of, man, this team is different. Like I feel like we have a chance to win every game that we've played so far. And eventually these bounces, these ref calls, these things that are happening that are negative, they have got to turn around. And they did. We ended up having a really, great year. And now we've got much higher expectations going into 2024 than certainly we had going into 2023.
Yeah, I think Anthony and I are wrong about nearly everything. But one thing I'm quite happy with us about is during that run, I remember we were pretty consistent on here that things were looking good and like the performances were there. And it always felt like once that first win came that a lot more would follow, which they did. Was there a moment for you where you thought, right, the season's really turned a corner now and suddenly there's this really positive, good forward game, yeah? that kind of folds into another question I've got about the last minute wins and how you feel in those moments as the owner of a club.
Yeah, it's I'd like to get to a point where we win a few games 3 or 4-0. Waiting until the last minute to either win them or lose them is I think putting some gray hairs on my head for sure. But um yeah, that Forge game was special. Like that's a game we never win in our first 4 years ever, right? Like that is not, you don't have the lead, give up the lead, with 10 minutes left, and then rally to, have that moment of belief. And I feel like that was a very symbolic or euphoric moment for the entire stadium, and I think we had a lot of PTSD going on, and some of the stuff that was coming out in those first 6 weeks was that it was, oh, here we go again, oh, this guy is same as before, here we go, we're losing games in the last minute and we're unable to score enough goals, and it's more of the same. And that game gave everybody reason to hope and believe that it wasn't going to keep being like that. And I think that was a real huge turning point for us as a club. And for I think for a long, long time from now, not just last season, but a huge turning point for us going forward. And listen, Forge had our number, right? Like they had kicked our butt the year before. At home at our place many times. So to do it against them was even more fitting and symbolic of the change we were making.
Yeah, definitely. I've said it a million times. That match was one of my favorite ever footballing moments in terms of the euphoria I felt at the end of it. Just a perfect example how, as a sport, it can give you the biggest low and then the biggest high within the space of 5 minutes. And you walk out of a stadium in a moment like that, just not really sure what's going on. You can't sleep because your adrenaline's still pumping. And
Yeah,
it was a wonderful, wonderful evening. I thought the
that's why
football
that's
around
why we do it, right?
exactly.
That's why we go to the games. It's why we put all the work in to put on the games. It's for those moments of euphoria that I don't know how else you get those. I haven't
Yeah,
found another way to get it.
no, it's the ultimate high. And around that time, I think the quality of football we were playing was just becoming really, really high and very attractive. And I remember you tweeting we'd played away versus York and we scored a beautiful team goal. And I remember you tweeting it was your favorite Wanderers goal. And the reason I found that really interesting was because, as you've said a million times, you didn't really grow up loving the sport. You've come to it quite late. You're still learning the game. And I always felt like I love that goal as well, but that wasn't the kind of goal you'd expect someone who was new to the sport to like, because when people are new to the sport, they tend to like the big overhead kicks or the 30-yard shots that go in off the bar, like the really eye-catching stuff. But a goal like that, which was all about off the ball movement, spatial awareness, timing, knowing your teammates, teamwork, that is not a goal I would have expected you to have said is your favorite. So I guess that's kind of a long-winded way of asking, why did you like that goal so much, and what was it about the football at that time that you started to enjoy?
Yeah, I thought it was a real culmination of a lot of the stuff I kind of had the advantage of knowing we were working on and that we were trying to be able to do that hadn't necessarily all come off yet in the first few games. Um, I must admit I love Thiago. Thiago is kind of one of those guys I just am rooting for because he's a big bull in a china shop. He reminds me of a football player. He's just this, tremendous athlete who's got all this potential, and he's a great kid, and he's just like I don't want to say anything that doesn't that comes across wrong, but he's just like this guy that just wants to please and just wants to kind of do all this great stuff. And for the passes to work the way they did, it was just this beautiful sequence of Geraldo and Aiden and Tiago, and it just all looked beautiful in the moment. And again, not anything I had ever seen us do before. Right? Like our goals had been scrappy. They'd been, you think about our Keane's first goal, it's kind of a rebound, a shot low. They're all
Penalties.
good. They're all good and they all count and they're all important. But to see a goal that you could almost picture being designed on a piece of paper,
Mm.
then be executed perfectly, um, it was a really cool moment to watch that come together. And to your point, I think I've like learned a little bit about. It's one of the things I've loved about learning about this sport is you start to really appreciate the little things that are happening all over the pitch, and the little step that someone takes that puts them in position to get the ball that then allows them to flick it over somebody to then be on the. It's amazing all of the little movements that go into something like that actually being possible. And that was kind of cool for me to appreciate.
And I think it's something the supporters appreciated as well, because as much as something switching on the pitch and the performance is getting better, there was definitely a switch inside the stadium as well, atmosphere wise. Is that something from where you sit in your container? Is that something that you could tangibly feel as well on a match day? Looking around, like there's something is not the same anymore. Like there's a joy and there's a noise coming that wasn't there before.
Yeah, I must say, like I think we've always had it at the Wanderers grounds. The atmosphere outside of the second half of 2022 has always been magic, right? And I think things got away from us a little bit at the end of 2022, and uh, unfortunately, there was just this sequence of events that happened and led to some issues, and it just dragged everything down. And it's partly why I needed to make a change, um, just to change the course of the direction we were going in. And it was so nice last year, and even the first game, if you guys remember, like the first game, maybe even into the second game, like there was still a little bit of that haze,
Mm.
if I can call it that, over the stadium. And once that went away, and once that joy came back, then I felt like it was back. Like it didn't take a long time for it to come back. It was like, okay, we're allowed to cheer again, and okay, we don't have to act upset, and we don't have to be mad, and we can just come back out here and enjoy what we're here to watch. It doesn't mean people can't have criticisms and opinions. That's all good. It's all part of it. But I felt like people weren't rooting for failure, they were rooting for success, and that's a big difference. Um, People weren't being pessimistic showing up at the grounds; they were showing up optimistic, outside of Anthony, maybe. Um, and that's just an important change that happened, and I think then we felt that for the rest of the year, is there was a sense of optimism, and hey, these guys, can win this thing. They can make the playoffs. They can do well in the playoffs. They've got the makings of a really talented group here that can do it. And I think that's half the battle, is just the team believing it, and then the fans believing it, that it's possible to actually be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a brilliant season. I think everyone I speak to absolutely loved every minute of it. But the season is done now, and we are looking ahead to 2024 and the new season. So in terms of your job, we have the home playoff game, brilliant day, shame about the result, but packed house. Everyone walks out of there really excited about coming back next season, I think. Does your work for the 2024 season begin literally the next day, or is it something that you've already been working on, like in the weeks leading up to the end of the season? Like, are you already having discussions about, this player is interested in coming here, or yeah, we don't think we're going to keep hold of these players going into next year? How clear is that picture by the end of that playoff game, or do those discussions all happen in the weeks following it?
I think, listen, I think anybody who's worked anywhere in any job knows, if you're feeling good, if you're feeling bad, if you're feeling like you're, in the right job, if you're feeling like you're not being taken advantage of in the right way, if you feel like you could be, more useful somewhere else. Like, I don't think those things all happen after this season. Um, Listen, let's be honest. There's players who aren't getting a lot of playing time who are obviously frustrated and feeling like this isn't going the way they want it to, which is all part of this and all completely reasonable. And I've said this often. Like, I totally respect every athlete's career is short, and they have a very small window to try to put themselves in the best situation that they possibly can to be successful. And we'll always respect those players' rights to try to find that good situation. So you look at a guy, look at a guy like Fumpa, right? Who love Fumpa, great guy, great character, has done nothing but been a perfect professional for us, done everything we ever asked him to do, switched to right back, a position he'd never played before because we asked him to. Those guys, it didn't work out for him. He didn't fit the profile that Patrice was looking for in those top three, forwards. But that doesn't mean Fupa's not a great player. It doesn't mean Fupa's not a great kid. It doesn't mean we don't want the best for him. So of course, we're going to have a really honest conversation with him before the season's even over about, hey man, don't worry. We want to try to help you find a good spot for you to continue your career and for you to land. How do we help you? Let's figure this out. He's been nothing but good to us as a player and as a member of our squad. So we're going to do everything we can to help him. And I'd say that was the majority of our guys were like that. They didn't cause problems. They weren't difficult. It's just the nature of a competitive sport and a competitive team who has brought in a bunch of new, players who have gotten better. Unfortunately, that means there's going to be some guys who can't achieve what they want to achieve, and that's what competition breeds, and what you need if you're going to be a successful sports team is you need those guys, and you need them to be pissed off because they're not worth anything if they're not competitive and give a shit. So I think a long way of answering your question, that a lot of those decisions were already well underway in terms of what we were going to do at the end of the season. Probably not hard for anybody to figure out watching the games and seeing who was making the team sheet and who was starting and who wasn't. Um, and you try to do it as respectfully and as professionally as you can with everybody. But our job is to win, and our job is to develop players in the best way that we can. So, we're going to have to balance that always. And, our job is to be as truthful and upfront with people as we can. And make sure everybody knows what the situation here is and what they're up against. And then it should never be a surprise. It should be okay, I'm either going to fight and, try to earn it, or I'll realize that it's not going to work out and I'm going to go and figure out another place to try to do it. And I think that's really healthy personally, and really good. So I think it's been an ongoing thing the whole season. You're evaluating, you're trying to figure out, who can we add, who maybe is going to be part of this going forward, who isn't. Then when you get to the end of the season, there's still a few guys who you're really unsure about, and mostly because they're great people, probably number one. And you really want to try to find a way to keep them or to find a fit for them. But then you're balancing off, is it really best for them to come back here and, potentially be in the same situation? Or, is it better for them to go find something else? And, not to make it sound completely altruistic, we're also looking at it saying, okay, how are we going to get better? Like we had a great season, no doubt, but we finished third in the league and we lost our playoff game. So we obviously weren't good enough to win the whole thing. We're not playing in CONCACAF next year. We didn't achieve our goal, so we have to get better. So how do we get better? And where are the places on the pitch that we can improve? And again, I think it's important for fans to realize it isn't necessarily even because someone's better than someone else. It might just be they're a better fit than someone else. And that's the part about a team that's interesting, is I don't think anyone, you look at our friends at TFC, just putting talented players on a pitch doesn't guarantee results. What gets results is putting a team together that all fit together and complement one another, and add something unique to the performance every single game that you play, and that's a constant experiment, and trying to figure out the chemistry of how that all works is always changing, because we're dealing with humans, and humans are always changing, whether it's injuries or mental situations that are happening, or personal life that's happening around them. There's all of these inputs that are going into the chemistry of the team, and that's what makes it fun, that's what makes it challenging, that's what makes it, you want to pull your hair out sometimes, but it's what makes it such an interesting drama that we all want to watch, is how is it all going to come together.
So the club did announce today, of the 10 players we had options on, 3 were coming back: Riley Ferrazzo, Cale Loffrey, and Aidan Daniels. Just quickly, what was it about those 3 that kind of convinced you to bring those back?
Yeah, well, I think all 3 of them are kind of no-brainers. I'd be shocked if anybody didn't think those 3 guys should come back. I think Aiden uh, Aiden was an enigma in 2022 for us, because everybody could see how immensely talented he was, but for whatever reason, back to the chemistry kind of comment, it wasn't happening for him out on the pitch with the staff we had, and with the role he was playing, and with the other people around him. I will say, Aiden was one of the key discussion points in all of the interviews with our coaches that we looked at. Is we kept saying, we got this incredibly talented guy here who we need to get, performances out of. Like, how would you do it? And it was literally a question in the interviews of Aiden Daniels. Research him. What do you know about him? How would you get him to play his best soccer? And Patrice had the best answer, and I think you saw that in the way Aiden kind of recaptured. It's still Aiden that has to do it, and he's the one that deserves the credit for performing. But it was awesome to see him, step up and become not just the talented player we knew he was, but I really thought his leadership improved immensely, and his give a shit factor, like the amount he cared, out on the pitch in those final few games of the season, was amazing to see, and I think a testament to him, and to Patrice, and to everybody. So Aiden was kind of a no-brainer. I think he's one of the most talented guys in the league, and can continue to be for a while. Cale was a revelation. We knew he was good. Patrice really believed in him, from knowing him from Ontario. I thought Cale was one of our best players. Really, truly solid as a rock. Knew his role, didn't try to do more than what he, felt comfortable doing. Paired extremely well with Dan as kind of the solid hang back center back, with the guy who could do the more dramatic passing, and get the game moving with his feet a little bit more. But I thought those 2 just worked really well. And listen, we brought Daniil in. Daniil is a fantastic human again, who brought so much in terms of leadership and character and class to us over the second half of the season. But the truth is that Cale, he couldn't knock Cale out of that spot. Right. And that's a pretty huge testament to Cale. That's not a slight on Daniil. That's a huge, I think, feather in Cale's cap, that he was able to do that and have that competitiveness to do it. So he's somebody we definitely wanted back. And Riley is, I don't want to make this sound, I don't want this to make it seem less important for him, but he's just one of those guys that Patrice believes in, because he's a soccer player. Like, he can play wherever he needs him to play. He gets the game. He can make plays. He can do things right. He doesn't make mistakes. he gets in the right places at the right time. He's a baller, in the true sense of the word. And we can fit him in kind of in a bunch of different positions. He's there to cover people off. If there's injuries, he can play midfield, right back, right wing, left. Like he can just do everything, which, I think is a real safety net for Pat to know that he's got a guy he can trust explicitly to know what to do in any position that he puts him in. So I think great for Riley. And then, the guys that we had to choose not to take the option up on. Um, Again, a number of really talented guys just fit, and where do they fit with where we're trying to go and with what we identified as the gaps we had this year in terms of the profile of the type of player we needed, or in some ways, Armand's a great example of a really talented, great player, who by the nature of our rules with under 21, we have to bring in a new under 21 group. And then what happens to a guy like Armand, and where can he fit with what we're trying to do? So, incredibly tough decisions. It certainly isn't a criticism of his talent or of his, how much we wanted him on the squad. We really did. But you got to you only have so many roster spots, and you've got to make these tough decisions year after year.
Yes.
And unfortunately, there's always going to be guys that have to move on, and that obviously is then going to create opportunities for new guys to come in, and off we go.
Absolutely, yeah. One more question from my end. In terms of recruitment, so Patrice mentioned like that we wouldn't believe the amount of players that had reached out to him and us as a club wanting to be part of this project. Is that something you've found as well? Like the level of interest in coming here is so much higher than it was 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, I think we always felt, and what we would hear is that everyone was, you know, in love with the idea of playing in front of our fans and playing at the grounds, and loved the idea of living in Halifax, and but they wanted to win, but there we weren't having the success yet that they wanted to have, but our facilities weren't quite up to some standards that they were seeing in other places. So we've worked hard to try to address those issues, and now I think we are becoming a destination that people want to go to, and we're in the fortunate position now of being able to say no to some players that want to come here, but just again don't fit with the vision that Pat and Matt have for kind of how we're going to play, and how those 22 or 23 guys need to fit together in the puzzle to make it all work. So yeah, it's been a nice shift, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see where we go, and as we start to announce these new players in the new year, I think there'll be some surprises for people. But at the end of the day, I think we're also really embracing the idea that bringing new players in is a real opportunity to change the narrative around our position in the league, and not to say that there aren't players on other teams that are super talented and would be good to bring over, but finding that next talent is, I think, more important. And there's always risk with that, because you might get a superstar, or you might get somebody who just doesn't get it and can't get used to playing over here. But I think taking that risk is something we're certainly willing to do and excited to do, see how it turns out.
Yeah, can't wait to see who comes on board.
So does it get any, like, that first year when you as you said, every year you kind of have to move, like, players move on and all that kind of stuff. But like that first year, how difficult was it to actually wrap your head around like moving on? How many players did we lose in the first year? Like 12 players, 13 players, like that?
Yeah, geez, it's tough, but it's also, I think, again, as I said earlier, if you go into it with the mindset of we're going to be honest with everybody, everybody knows what they're signing up for. They know this is a competitive industry. It's a competitive business. We're not lying. We're not promising things that, we can't deliver on. I think, and I hope that sets up a situation where you can have these, conversations throughout the year and at the end of the year that aren't as surprising, and everybody kind of understands where we're coming from, and we're trying to win. And we're in a league that is a emerging league with a lot of emerging talent, which lends itself to a lot of change, because you think back to the guys that were in this league in year one, there aren't a lot of those guys still in the league.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's not to slight those guys. It's just the league has evolved and it's grown, and talented players have come back now from Europe that maybe were unsure of coming in year one or even in year two, and it's really raised the quality of the entire league, and I think that's going to continue to happen. I don't think that's going to stop. I think the league's going to continue to get better and better, and as we get bigger and more successful on the business side, as we talked about at the beginning, that's going to mean increased wages and increased salaries, and that's going to increase the level of play. So this thing's going to keep going and building, and we just have to go into every year knowing that it's a moment in time. And I remember saying that to the guys, when we did our kind of kickoff dinner event this year. It's like, hey, look around and enjoy the heck out of this year, and I can guarantee that we won't all be back here next year. So enjoy this year, like enjoy this time. It's precious, and it's finite, and this group of players will never be together again. So you're kind of just doing the best you can on that year, and then there's going to be some people going different directions at the end of that year, and it's going to change the whole dynamic of what it looks like the year after that. And I don't think that's bad. I think that's good. I think that's why we always feel invigorated and excited at the start of every season, because we've got this new project to work on.
Well, we've seen talking about players come back from Europe. We've seen the first ever Wanderer going back to Valor, so that must be kind of nice that we're going to see Zach Secunda back at the grounds.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to see Zach, and I think it's awesome. It's amazing that he's come back, and again, when our first pick ever, and again, Zach was a really great player for us, a great guy. It caused zero problems. Those are the people you root for, that you're very happy to see. He's had a great career since he left us. He's done really well in Europe, and again, I don't think it's because he wasn't talented, or it's just for whatever reason in the chemistry of our team in that first year, it didn't work out great for him. And I hope when we beat Valor, and he's not too upset, and we can have a good chat and go from there.
Love it. So we just have some listener questions. Like, we always really appreciate the fact that you do this. So this one's from Carlos. What's your next goal as a president for the club besides having a permanent stadium? And is there any updates on the Wanderers women's team, which he has given the nickname the Wandas? So
what did he call it?
The Wandas.
The Wandas.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, I like it, right?
Carlos, yeah, he's probably got a couple of logos ready for it too. I'd say obviously stadium is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think winning is 1A. I'm a competitive guy. I really desperately want to win this thing. I want to win against an MLS team. I want to be moving ahead in the Canadian Championship. I want to win the league. I want to win the playoffs. I want to be in CONCACAF. I want to sell a player because not just because in the moment it works for the player and it works for the club, but because it sends a message that the Wanderers can help move players through the system and on to bigger and better things. So never apologize for that either. I try to stay off social media now, but some of the stuff on there that people just get negative about, listen, we are a league for people to develop. We've said it from day one. We're unapologetic about it. We're going to provide great entertainment. We're going to have a great time. It's going to be super fun for you to go watch the games. But yes, we want guys to move on and do super well. And to see Mo Farsi win an MLS Cup is amazing. Even for me, who, I've never met him and he's never been with us, but the fact that he was in our league and he's gone on to those things is fantastic. I want Dan to go on and play in Europe or in MLS, Dan Nimick, and these things are what you want as you grow. So we desperately want to achieve those things, and I think the next few years will be really about how we grow our club here with a new stadium. It's going to come with a demand on us to sell more season tickets, to sell more tickets to every game, to bring on more corporate sponsors. That's going to be a lot of work. Um, but that will bring us to a place where hopefully if our on-field success is matching it, in 2 or 3 years when the World Cup comes to Canada in 2026, I want the Wanderers to have won a title and to be considered one of the top teams in Canada.
Love it. And the women's team, how any played?
Oh
Sorry.
yeah. Sorry, I got excited there. But the women's team is a big focus for us this year. We're launching I don't know how much I can say. We're launching a series this summer of games. Whether we call that a league or we call it a series of tournaments, we're not quite sure yet. But we are going to have a women's team. We had our first tryout camp a couple weeks ago. Went really well. We're going to continue with that, and much like we did with the U23 team the last couple of years, we're all in on getting started with this, and trying to figure out the right path forward to be set up for success in the women's game. And there's a lot that goes into that, and I don't take any of it lightly. It's going to take a lot of effort and work, but I think it's worth it, and it's time to really figure out a solution for the women's game.
Love it. Next question is from CB Keeper Guy. The city staff report in the stadium should be coming soon. Has the city engaged you recently, and are you still feeling optimistic the build could be completed for the 2025 season?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say. We're most of this work happens behind the scenes, as people could probably imagine. So, have had lots of discussions with the city. Have a meeting this week with the city. I'm still pushing for 2025, as I said in my presentation back in September, October. 2025 is extremely aggressive, but I'd rather be aggressive now versus just assuming we can't do something and exhaust the possibility. I truly believe that there's a positive attitude around the need for the stadium. Obviously it's been a challenging time. There's a housing crisis that's not unique to Halifax. That's happening all over the world and all over Canada that we're wrestling with as a government. There's a lot of debate between the provincial government and the municipal government about how to fund these things and how to do it. But I do implore and urge people to, be able to have the intellectual capacity, if you will, to hold multiple ideas at one time in their mind and say, yes, housing is a big issue. Yes, it is important. Yes, we need to work on a solution, but it is not at the expense of all other things. And, we are still growing as a city and have a huge need for infrastructure and recreation and entertainment. And, this isn't a zero-sum game where if we spend, $20 million on this, it means there's no money available for this. It doesn't work that way. There's money earmarked in lots of different budgets for lots of different things, and I think that's just been our biggest challenge politically, admittedly, over the last couple of months is getting people ready to be able to have those conversations and think about things conceptually in a way that isn't about one thing means you can't do the other thing. It's about trying to build a city which has a lot of parts, a lot of moving parts to it, and I think we're just one small piece of it, and we want to do our part.
Nice. This one's from our good friend Denton. What role should social media play in operating a club?
Well, I don't think it plays any role in operating a club. I think it plays a critically important role in marketing a club and in ensuring your fans and the people that you communicate with on a regular basis can get quick, accurate, fun information from you as a business. Because at the end of the day, like, I think, we try to stress it as much as we can, but we're all about having fun. Like you don't go to a Wanderers game to stress out about stuff that's happening in the world or in your life, or we all know life can be complicated for people, and it can be a challenge. You go to a sporting event to smile, to laugh, to see someone that you haven't seen in a while, to get mad at the players, get mad at the ref, uh, be happy when we score a goal. You want to kind of express all these emotions in a safe place, and have some joy. And I think that's what we try to do in our social media. We try not to take ourselves too seriously. It's, we're not, what's that famous line about soccer being the least important thing? It's very true, like this is a distraction. It's meant to just give people something to take their minds off of much more serious matters. And I think social media is perfect for that, because at the end of the day, social media is really quick. It's gone, after you read it for a minute, and then you move on to the 30 other things that have filled into your timeline. And it is a great way, though, to get information out to a lot of people really quickly. Um, and we've really embraced it. I think it's been, one of the key reasons we've been successful so far from a marketing standpoint. It's much more effective, in my opinion, than traditional marketing. We don't do any print advertising at all. Like, we've never bought an ad in a newspaper or a print publication. We, do some outdoor billboards, we do some radio, and we do social media. And that's how we get the word out about the Wanderers, and hopefully people can kind of see a little bit of our personality in the way we post and talk about things. And that's I think that's good, and it's fun.
I think that's actually like a league wide thing. I think that every club has up their social media game. It's the engagement is a lot more interactive with the fans and stuff like that. It's not just a boring post anymore. There's obviously kind of cool little videos, and the club's having a little bit of fun back and forth and stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think everybody's doing a really good job with it, and it only has room to grow.
Amazing. Let me see. This one's from Aaron Thibault. There's a stadium one again. Would you consider the budget to be split over multiple years and update the stands one at a time? So how's the budget going to work, like in terms of building the actual stadium?
Yeah, so our proposal was to do it in two phases. So phase one would be replacing the two grandstands that we currently rent, the pop-up, if you will, with a more permanent structure that kind of went right around the corner, had locker rooms built underneath, had concessions, washrooms, basically the amenities that we don't have now would all be built into that more permanent structure. Um, that would get us to the kind of 9,000 capacity range. And then phase two would be removing the shipping containers that we have on the south and west sides, and replacing those with another permanent structure that would almost mirror the structure on the other side. Couldn't be as big because we don't have as much physical space on those two sides as we do on the others. But by doing that, we would gain another 4 or 5,000 seats in capacity to get us into that 13 to 14,000 range.
Nice. This one's from Deep Sea Diver. Has the club considered partnering with a UK or European club to allow training opportunities in the off season and loans in season?
Yeah, absolutely. We currently have a couple players training now in the UK. So I'll leave it to the super sleuths to try to figure out who that is. But we've already started those relationships. We're actually looking to head over and do our training camp in England to take advantage of some of these partnerships with clubs. We think it'd be a great way to get some great competition to start the league or start the preseason before we came back and played our first CPL game. Obviously, when you're in England, you've got a plethora of teams to play against that would all be at a super high level, great facilities. You're in the mecca of the game, so our players get to be, feel like stars and, get seen by a lot of scouts and other sporting directors at other teams. And hopefully that can lead to some other opportunities for them down the road. So absolutely, and I think geographically, it's one of the advantages we have in Halifax that we haven't been able to take advantage of yet. Where we're closer to London than we are to Vancouver. So, why wouldn't we be the team in the CPL who is really kind of leaning into exploring partnerships over there and doing some really cool things to raise our profile. Look to bring. We're working with a couple of teams in England now to bring them over here in the summer to play friendlies. Whether it's their youth team versus our youth team, it's their women's team versus our women's team, or it's their first team versus our first team. We're exploring all of those things because that's how we help grow the game and help build it. So we're well down the road, and hopefully in the next few months we've got some positive announcements to make about what that all looks like.
That's super exciting. So, do you think we'll ever see like a CPL All Star where it was the MLS, they bring over a team once a year to play in a bit like the best of the best from the MLS play? Would you see something like that within our league?
I would say anything possible. I think I'm a big believer in experimentation. I think some people get their knickers in a knot anytime you throw a creative idea out there, and oh my God, you can't do that, and how could you ever think to, at the end of the day, again, if you go back to my comment earlier that this is about having fun, then why not try some things that are fun? And yes, they might bomb and it might be a horrible idea at the end of the day. And then you know what? You don't have to do it again. You can park it and forget about it, or not forget about it. Just remember never to do it again and move on to something else. So I'd have no problem trying a all-star game. I think it could be fun. It might not work. Maybe we're not at the level yet to fill up a neutral site venue with some CPL players versus an English team. I don't know. It's not going to be in the works for this year, that's for sure. But it's been talked about, and we've talked about it at the board table, and we've talked about it as a concept, and I think it'd be interesting. People love to get upset and shit on the MLS, but I think the MLS has done a lot of things right. And one of the things that they do right is they try things, and when you try things, some of them work out extraordinarily well, and some don't. But you don't know until you try. So we'll see. I don't, it won't happen in 2024. I can guarantee you that. But it might be something for down the road that we feel we're ready to give a shot to.
Love it. This
We'd
one's
probably beat Tottenham, wouldn't we?
okay. Moving on. Probably. I think my Sunday team would probably be Tottenham at this stage. So we're this one's from good friend Chris Earl. With the news of some long time operational staff members leaving, what's it been like working with these folks over the last few years? And what aspects are key into hiring the next generation of Wanderer workers behind the scenes?
Yeah, listen, I think the staff that work in the office are very similar to the players in that, we're trying to bring in talented young people all the time that are passionate about what they're doing and, where they want their career to go. And everybody has a period, I think, that they can give their all to something, and then they need to explore what else they can do. and always will be supportive of that. I will, in my role, I think we've been very lucky to have some really talented, special people work within the club. I think we'll continue to recruit and find talented and special people. And with change comes opportunity, and we'll have the chance to learn from the people that we bring in. And again, back to the idea of experimentation. When you bring in new people, you bring in new ideas, and you can try some new things, and hopefully keep the ethos of what the club is all about. That's my job, is to hopefully ensure that the good parts we keep, but we embrace new ideas and new thoughts from the people that join us, and then watch, like we hopefully watch players go on to do amazing things in other leagues. We can watch the staff that we've had in our office go on to do amazing things with their careers, both for the community and for themselves. And that gives me a lot of joy, to be honest, to know that we've helped give people a platform to kind of find themselves and achieve some success that has then led them to go find even more success in some other places. And especially when they're able to continue to give back to our community, it's really it's rewarding, and I hope we can continue to do that.
Love it. There's a couple of questions here from Halifax Steve. Let me see here. Any hints of this year's home and away jerseys? Are we going to keep the darker blue for the home jersey?
Yes, we will always. We are going to always keep blue for the home jersey. So that's a kind of again a brand element of the team, or whatever you want to call it. But I think we've had the most success when we've had that dark blue base for the home kit, and we'll do that again. We've had some fun with it. One of the great things about working with Macron is they do give us this ability to design these neat, different, the buzzword is bespoke, but we get to kind of customize these ideas every year. And I always think they're great. I approve them, so I obviously like them. I know not everybody loves every one that we come out with, but that's the way fashion is designed to be. You're not going to love everything. You're going to like some, you're going to not like others. But I really like the two this year, just like I liked the two last year. But they're different. They tell a bit of a story. They will always try to have them tie into a little bit of what makes us unique here on the East Coast and in our community. And I think the two this year do a good job of that.
I like to see them. Yeah, I think we've been really lucky that like Macron will, because you see so many like companies that like the jerseys are all the same. You know what I mean? It's like it's just a little tweak here and there, where they've really given the league the option to go and kind of go all out. So it's been a great partnership. The only thing is that those jerseys don't fit fat people like me. So
you and me, you and me both.
Yeah.
You've got to check your ego at the door when you get the sizing, and not buy one too small. That's for sure.
Yeah. He just one more question then from Steve. Without the 12 days of Christmas and Rover's Christmas party, how do you suggest fans like me survive the off season? How can I keep the Wanderers spirit alive during the break and off season?
Yeah, listen, we're you made reference there. We've had a couple of staff changes. It's kind of limited our ability to kind of do some of the stuff we usually do at this time of year. I would hope that Steve can go back and watch some highlight tapes and games from this year, since these games were so much more entertaining than we've had in the past, and fill up another month. I think we announced today when we did our end of season roster update that we'll have our first Wanderer Wednesday on January 31st. So you just have to make it through until then, and then we'll start kind of bringing the news of the guys we have joining us for 2024, which we're really excited about. We've got most of those guys all signed up now, and just working through some different things with all of them. But we're really excited about the squad that we're building and have built so far, and it might not be a bad thing to take a little Wanderers break, over the holidays, and
Yeah.
then come back rearing to go in February, end of January, beginning of February. And these guys, March 1st, they're all back, so it's not really that far away.
It's really not, and I really hope that we kind of last year. I really appreciate that we had the open training session. It was one of the first training sessions. It was a great way for everybody to kind of get to see Patrice and get to kind of see the squad. So hopefully we do something like that.
We will. We'll absolutely. We enjoyed that too. I thought that was really great, and I know last year there was a lot of excitement with new coach and new style, but we were incredibly. I was incredibly amazed, emotional, I guess, and just how many people were there for those sessions and games, and really showed how much everybody cares about what we're trying to do here. So those are going to become a key part. We're going to try to expand that. Actually, we're trying to bring a few more teams in at that beginning part of the year before we head off for a kind of out of Halifax training camp experience. But when we're here, we're looking to do a bunch of games and really try to do some stuff for the fans who are willing to brave the cold and come out at that time of year and give them something to watch and cheer for.
That's why you sell Wanderers rum, right? That's
right.
Yeah,
that's right.
So the last question. So this is from Kevin Anderson, who is a horrible person who supports Forge. Will Derek be cheering on Forge as a good Hamiltonian, or will he be cursing them based on the tiebreaker rule for stealing our spot last year?
Well, we shit the bed there, because the tiebreaker only would have worked if we would have won in the playoffs. But Forge went and won the whole thing, so it didn't really matter at the end of the day. But listen, I'm going to cheer for Forge and for Calgary. Because they're representing our league and our players, and I hope they can get a win in that first round, especially in that competition. So I'll be cheering them on for sure, and I can't wait till they're cheering us on in 2025 when we take their spot.
Love it. Well, Derek, thank you so much. I know we kind of run over, and it's been quite an epic answering session for you. But man, thank you so much for everything you do for us. We're really lucky to have you in charge of the team, and it's, as Gary was saying earlier on, like compared to where we were last year, it's 2024 just looks fantastic, and I think everybody's like super optimistic and can't wait to see everybody back at the ground. So Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, pal.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony, and Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you too. I really appreciate that you guys do this. I think Down the Pub was the OG podcast, and it's great to see so many others kind of trying to take up what you guys do, but you guys have kept it going. And I know there's a couple others that are doing the same thing here, but it matters. And I think the more, one of the big things we struggle with as a league still is relevancy across the board. And you guys have done such a great job of helping us be relevant here in our market. And I think in 2024, there'll be some things that happen that help with our relevancy across the country and in some other ways. But, I appreciate it. And thank you for what you guys do. It's, I know it's a labor of love, but it's definitely appreciated by all of us that work at this every day.
Thanks, Derek. Have a good
one, buddy. Okay, have a great holiday.
You too, man. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay, thanks, bud. Okay, bye.
Folks, please. Right foot, please.